like just go right away, tell them, hey, I'm emailing you because we're interested in a sponsorship from your company. You tell them why you need the sponsorship. Oh, we really need money so we can go to this competition to help this many students in this area. We think it's really important to help the youth in STEM, something like that. Where the money would go to, whether it's for transport, for robot parts, maybe it's for a summer project. You just want to talk about it all. And lastly, you want a call to action, like, hey, if you want to reach out to us, reach me through here, and you can include benefits, which I'll be talking about a little later. So a few tips for your emails. Format it nicely. Like, visually, people don't like emails that's just like one block of text. Again, they don't really have a super big obligation for you. You just are there asking for things. And so you want to at least make it nice and pretty. Try to break things up into paragraphs, just general email etiquette. You really want to show that you're an individual. Like, some people recommend that you go say, hey, we are Team 8, Team 8 is this. Like, I'm from Team 8, so I'm just using that as an example. But I find it's better to just use your own personal voice, like, hey, my name is Jennifer, I blah, 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 and I really love First because of this. Because it makes you seem like a lot more personal, and the email a lot more personal, because you do First, you spend a lot of money and time and effort building this amazing robot, like all of you, and it's really inspiring for like people and companies that don't know about it, where they're like, oh my god, there are these teens making these cool robots, doing these cool things, and they just want to help you in that. So you kind of want to make people understand why you love what you do and have them love it with you. Lastly, just a small note, mail merge really helps. If you don't know what mail merge is, it's basically a program that allows you to send the same email with a few customizations to everyone. For example, if I just wanted to mass email all the restaurants in my area, I can send an email, but instead of writing dear, I would just have like a space bar and it would insert the restaurant name. So I'd be like, oh, dear Pizza Hut, dear McDonald's, and then everything would line up so I don't have to constantly be sending the same email with copy and spaces. I learned that this year, so for the past 2 years on my time as the team, I've been copying like 50 emails at once. It's really tiring. So here's an example of an email. I think this is from a year ago or something. Spot Pizza is actually a sponsor of ours. So it worked. So first off, you want a title that's interesting but doesn't sound like clickbait, because some people like to send emails like urgent or help now, but that kind of seems a lot more like spam because they might not actually know what your robotics team is, and you don't want to give them a reason not to click on your email. Second, you want to address them professionally. Don't use hi, please. You can introduce yourselves, say your first name, use personal voice like I, we, who we are, what like First is, and your email them here. I'm not Annalie, that's my fellow presenter. I am emailing to inquire if Spot Pizza would be able to donate food during 2 of our robot building nights. So you just kind of talk to them. Don't use too much, what's the word? Jargon. So don't say like, oh, we want to use it during build season or something, because we mention it and define it. Otherwise, don't use it or else people won't know what you're talking about. And you want to mention like, hey, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, but depending on what, if you are or if you're not, say, hey, we really need this money, we can't really support ourselves, and we really want to help you guys. And the bottom part linked is a copy of the benefits you would get. So other than emails, there are always other ways to reach sponsors. Of course, there isn't always one golden way to do things. So cold calling isn't bold because it's probably the most feared way of contacting people. It's essentially just picking up the phone and calling someone, like out of the blue, and being like, hey, I'm from here, help. It's like an email, but you're calling them. There's also like forums if you want to find people, and like, I don't know, I got that advice somewhere. Direct connections, like I mentioned, through your mentors, through kids' parents, through teachers, whatever way you can, direct connections always work. And lastly, like real presentations. I know teams have done really well business-wise, like their budget's like hundreds of thousands of dollars, simply by going to businesses with a little like prop stand and like posters and just going being like, hey, we'd like to present. They send an email saying, we're gonna present about our team and sponsoring us, can we go? They usually say yes, and then they just go with their little prop stand and their posters that say, hey, we're this, why you should give us money. And it really works, because once again, personal passion inspires. Like they're showing we're really dedicated, we're willing to come in here with all our people on a school night maybe or a weekend and just talk to you about it in real life, because that's how much we're dedicated to this. So you kind of want to show people that. More about cold calling, because I think it's amusing, and I was really afraid of cold calling. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Most of them are nice. The worst thing that can happen is that they say no. What I did this year was try to make it a game, because a lot of people are more like confident or competitive about things if you try to make it like fun for yourself. So I watched a TED Talk on a guy who tried to do crazy things every year. He was like, oh, I'm super shy, so for a whole year I'm gonna do crazy things. So he asked a guy to borrow $100, like a stranger. He asked for a burger refill, like a lot of crazy things that he thought would never happen, and then a lot of them did happen. So inspired by that, I picked a list of companies or organizations that I liked, and I was like, I'm just gonna call them all. And the red shows rejection, so I was rejected a lot. But the green shows that it worked, and so you can kind of see it here. It like works way more of the time than I thought it would. So that was the really exciting part of it. Like if you just reach out, people are there for you. Okay, so the worst thing that happened to me for cold calling was someone's assistant called me back and said no to me. So I called her, and she didn't pick up, and then 5 minutes later her assistant came and was like, hey, I'm Kimberly, Mary says no. Thanks. So like that was kind of yikes. But other than that, everyone's super nice. So I think you should do it. A lot of money does come from that way, because once again, it makes it more personal. Through emails, sometimes like the personality gets lost, because it's just an email, right? Emails are kind of formal. It's on text. You can't really tell who they are. But when you're on call, it's like you can't deny the fact that that's an individual you're talking to. That's someone who really cares about something. So that's the exciting part about calling people. So sponsor recognition. These are the benefits that you can have for someone. So I just linked a few pictures of our sponsorship packet. So you can either bring them on your banner, on your shirts. You guys probably know this because your shirts have all your sponsor names on, I assume. On your robot, through a robot panel, on your website. On transportation is the iffy part. If your team has like a trailer or something, you can always just add a huge banner or like logo of theirs onto your trailer or truck or something, if that's possible. And so how we would suggest you do it is make it levels. This is probably just common information for most of you, but just to go over it. Like say they give $1,000 or less, they can be on your shirts, but not on your website. After $2,000, they can be on your website shirts, but not on your robot. Like you want to create levels which both incentivize giving money and make sure you don't have like all your sponsors on everything. You know what I mean? So when I sent out the thing and posted it on First, I mentioned that you should probably bring laptops or writing so we can just do some activities. There's a lot more people than I expected, so this activity might not be super working. But what I wanted to do was just have everyone form into small groups within their teams or with strangers, because friends are good, and just try to write a small sponsorship email, and then afterwards, I'll just like pick 2 of you out of the blue, and we'll just go over it, try to talk about it. Yeah, because you know, it's always good to have practice on these things, and what's better than to practice now with me? So can I just have everyone kind of group themselves alone? If this doesn't work for the next activity, I'm just going to group you guys. So as big as you're comfortable with. Yeah. So have everyone just group themselves. I will rejoin at 11:20. So you have 8 minutes to come up with like a rudimentary-ish email. After 8 minutes, if you're not done, just tell me. But yeah, break. I was going to pick the delightful ladies in the purple and the delightful guys also in the purple, and the girl. So before that, is anyone like dying to share their email for feedback? Oh, yes, you. What's your name? Ariana. Ariana? Hi. Okay, do you want to just read your email out loud? Yeah, sure. anyone from the crowd have feedback before I jump in? No? Huh? Yes, that is true. So you mentioned FLL and you didn't really explain what that was, or like what your team was. So you might want to use a little bit more of like explanatory things. Good point. Caleb. Caleb? Yeah, Caleb. Any other comments? Yes.
I personally always like when just thank somebody in advance.
Yeah,
That's
I agree. I really like that ending. Yeah.
I was just thinking you might leave off the fact that you're sponsored by Walmart because they may think that Walmart's giving you enough money. They might not add to what you already have. So I would leave that out as a possibility.
Yeah, you might want to like not bring up other sponsors because you are sponsored by other companies and you do want to recognize them, but perhaps like not in an email to a potential sponsor. Yes?
There's a statement of sort of need about equipment and stuff, but if one could get more specifically say, our mill broke and we can't build a robot anymore, so we need to replace the mill, it's going to cost $10,000, that sort of thing. A little more compelling, specific about what your need is.
Yeah. Any more comments or do you want to just me to jump in? So I really like what everyone else already mentioned. I like how you introduce yourself at the beginning and you talk about FLL and how like you're inspiring children and how the money would be able to go to a machine. Like that was really direct and I think it flowed well. I think you could just have cut out bits about like Walmart and maybe defined FLL and focus a lot more on like youth STEM, like that kind of oriented approach. Because I think you kind of did it, but you kind of like edged away from it by like talking about Walmart by not defining things. So by like giving a more focused approach, because FLL is so many things, you know, it's like teamwork, it's STEM, it's like youth. You want to just like choose one thing you really want to focus on and like why that matters for your team and just like bring that up. I think that when you say that it could help NASA by making new people who would work for NASA, you may want to say it in like a less blunt way, like because that's like too much like, it sounds like you want to be a feeder organization, which isn't the case, of course, right? So you maybe you want to say like, oh, by doing this, we can inspire the next generation of STEM leaders. That's like a really cliched phrase. You probably want to use something different. But, you know, something that says benefit for them and benefit for their mission, but nothing too direct. And then I liked your ending. Yeah, other than that, I think it was pretty concise. And if you just fix a few jargon errors and like mentions, then it would just be like a really solid email. Yay. Thank you, Ariana. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Or I'm just gonna pick one of the teams in the purple. Oh, yes. Oh, what's your name?
Oh, my name?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Huh?
Nalia.
Dahlia? Nalia. Okay, sorry. Hi.
Okay, so we use the, like, instead of putting a link in a team number, I think we put a blank. So the subject of the email would be link FRC robotics team sponsorship opportunity. And then the actual email would be, dear Mr. My name is Blank from team. Our team participates in the first robotics competition, whose mission is to engage the youth in STEM. At our most recent regional, our team won and are now proceeding to the champions. We're looking for financial support to get us to championships. Our team is lacking funds for the blank sector, and we're thinking that your company might be interested in helping us out. We urge you to donate to our team to get us to future competitions. Some of our sponsors tend to donate over a blank amount of money, but we'll proudly display our company's logo on our team shirts, banners, and other team gear. If you want more information, you can head to our website, blank. Thank you for your time. Blank name, team captain.
Okay. Does anyone want to say anything about the email? Oh, yes?
I thought it was short and brief and got really to the point. I feel like it's a lot of emails. What I've seen in the past from our business team, for our robotics team, we see this kind of, sorry. See it having struggle. Yeah, they elaborate more than they need to, and you get straight to the point.
Yes?
I was going to say, you can visit our website
Okay, so I agree with what was mentioned. Saying coming to visit your website may be a little bit too like distant because your whole email is like really personal, really like engaging until like the last little bit. So maybe you either want them to invite to contact you specifically and not the website, or say, hey, if you want to call me or if you want to like meet at some time, you know, feel free. I'm open. Blah 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 blah. Depending on how close they are to Team Blank.
Give a contact my email or contact.
Yeah, and then, or just feel free to contact me. I really liked how you mentioned your past wins. Like, I think that's something that teams should be doing because you want to show, like, I don't know how to say this. Okay, people don't want to sponsor things that they think will fail, right? Like, you don't want to put your money into, like, claw machines aren't popular anymore because people don't think they're going to win things from a claw machine, right? That's a very bad analogy. But you want to show them that, like, you're really doing something. You're really making a change, and they should be part of that change by giving you money. So I really like how you mentioned that, how you want to go to this, and you just want to make bigger, better things, but you just need them to help you. And I really, really liked how you phrased it. I would say, timing-wise though, like just feasibility argument, the first championship sponsorships, it's less able for you to get money from sponsors in the middle of the year because like companies operate by fiscal year, right? So it starts like roughly around the school year. So like at the beginning of the school year, that's where a lot of sponsorship things happen because like the new year they set a new budget for how much you should give to nonprofit organizations or to organizations. And at the beginning, you have a lot of money, so you're like, hey, I should totally give it to Team Blank. But in the middle, they're like, you know, almost out of money, and they're like, I don't know if we should give it to Team Blank. And then near the end, if they have left over, they're like, what do we do with this excess money? Hey, Team Blank. So, you know, you want to kind of time it, but that's just like a logistical thing. Otherwise, your email is really good. I just think the ending could be a little bit more personal, and then it'd be just great. Yeah. 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 I think it's good. In our emails generally, let me find our example email. JK, where'd it go? In our example email, we try to link a copy like a PDF just because sometimes they get kind of excessive. Like, if you have a lot of different layers, like, oh, you'll get it on our shirts or our website or blah, 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 you might want to just consolidate it into a pretty document. What ours has is all our awards wins. So like it goes our mission statement, our awards wins, our sponsorship levels, and why you should be involved. So it's like a nice little packet, pretty concise. This helps keep your email kind of clean, so you don't want to like overwhelm people. And it's just like pretty and formatted, and people are interested. That's a little bit of it. Okay, so yeah, just any questions before we move out of the email sector? Yeah. Longer emails are totally fine. Sorry, my throat is dying. Long emails are totally fine. Lots of teams do make really, really long emails, as the girl in the back mentioned before. I forgot her name, I'm sorry. So how they do it is you want to format it nicely. Some people go a little bit too over, but I know that sometimes when you want to fit so much information, you just kind of need a longer email. Just try to make sure things are like indented nicely. What I like doing is if you have sponsorship levels that you want to talk about, have them like indented in so it looks like there's some sort of organization. And then if people skim, they won't be missing important things. So just try to make sure that nothing is important is lost in the text. I would say don't bold and don't caps lock. Some people try to do that in emails to make things look important, but it just looks super aggressive, and you don't want to be super aggressive in these things. So yeah, just formatting is key. I love formatting. Okay, so moving out of direct contact with emails, how do you want to keep in touch with your sponsors? So newsletters are something that I think is really interesting. We do it, lots of teams do it, and some teams opt for electronic or physical. So either way, you want to do it routinely. Like, don't send them out at random times. Do as I say, not as I do. I sent them out at random times last year, but now we have a new person, and she's really good at it because I micromanage her. But you want to do it routinely at random times. Either have them monthly, bi-yearly, or tri-yearly. So depending on how you do it, like monthly is really hard to do, especially during build season. Like what we do, I have like an assigned person to make these every month because they're kind of hard to do. You want to make sure it's formatted nicely, and if you just have it as a group effort, if you have like your mechanical lead working on it in the middle of build season, that's like not your first priority. But at the same time, your sponsors are really important to you because they give you money. So you want to just dedicate your resources to what you can do. Don't bite off more than you can chew, or else it's going to be a problem. Visits to companies are really helpful. Once again, it shows like you're a passionate person, you're a real person, you're not a bot sending them emails, and it establishes like a really human connection with people. So, these are pictures from visits. Wow, it's cute. It's also really good to put on your business plans and stuff if you have photos with them. So that's a side benefit. So more about newsletters. The slide's differently formatted, I'll explain later. So you want to put them regularly, as I said before, and you want to have competition updates, outreach activities, and lots of pictures, and like maybe member personal projects. Like I know sometimes they have like featured member of the month or member of the semester, or however you want to divide it. This just makes things like cute, personal, and allows the sponsor to see what you're doing, because you have social media, you have competitions, but sponsors aren't always the most present there, right? Like, if you're part of a huge company, like let's say Google, maybe like I contact some guy from Google, his name is Mark, okay? And I contact Mark from Google, Mark knows me, maybe, but no one else knows me. And by giving newsletters, he can share them, or he can look at them, and they know that we're actually doing things. We're not just like a statistic that they put money into, right? You wanna show that you're doing cool things and they're helping you. Physical versus digital. That is the real question of the ages. Most people, I don't know why this is, okay. Sorry for the banner at the bottom, but digital versus physical. This comes to the question of image. Like, who are you projecting as a team? If you're projecting like, oh, we're a modern, like, techie team, and like, we're part of this cool new STEM thing, maybe having physical newsletters isn't the best idea. But I know teams that like really capitalize on the fact that they're youth. Like, oh look, we're adorable teens doing robot things. I sound patronizing, but that's like part of their image. Like their image is we're like really wholesome, excited teenagers, and we really want to help you. And that way, physical worked really well for them because they mail it. They have like a little handwritten note. It's like adorable. They send like food. Yeah, I know Space Cookies used to do something like that. I'm not sure anymore. It's adorable. Digital, however, is a lot faster, and we do it because once again during build season, it's a lot of effort, and you don't want to spend a lot of your time writing handwritten notes. In the end, keep it short and sweet. That's what the last little bit says that you can't see. You don't want it to go too over, but these are a few examples of newsletters. This is the Funky Monkey newsletter, and this is Eagle Robotics. So they have like really fleshed out newsletters, which looks almost like a newspaper. Of course, this is like really nice extra newsletters that I found, but if you want to keep something shorter and simpler, you don't have to go this in depth. We just have this. It looks better. This is kind of outdated, but I have it anyway. So how we do it is you do it on MailChimp. I'll talk a little about it later, but you just want to have lots of pictures, captions. At the end, we always say like, oh, thank you for supporting us. Everything we do from this month, this semester, is because of your help, so, thanks. So collect statistics on this, just like later for competition things. We use MailChimp. What MailChimp is really helpful to do is they have, like groups that you can send them to. So if I have a list of sponsors, like sponsors A through Z, I can put them all into one group, and after I make a newsletter, I just click send to sponsor group, and it all just sends. So what we did was we have a group for parents, a group for like outreach people that are interested, a group for sponsors, and we just send them all. And then you could track clicks and the time opened, and if people click links of yours and stuff like that. And then it's really cool because the statistics kind of add up, and it seems really cool. We know our newsletter reaches over 100 people per month, which sounds like a lot, but honestly isn't that much if you think about like how you can link people to newsletters. It's honestly really easy. It sends to their email. It's great. I'm not sponsored by MailChimp. So other ways to keep them updated, because you want them to be part of your life, because they're making your team happen in a way. Demos and open houses are always really good. You can send them videos if your team has like a really fire YouTube. That's always super cool. Sponsor packages go back to like resources and image. Of course, sponsor packages are adorable. I know people send food, again, notes. Sometimes people send shirts if your team has like extra shirts. However you want to do to make it seem like you really care about them. It's like a gift package. It's a lot to do though, so like make sure you know that. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Thank you letters and cards. Something that's always nice that a lot of teams do is just take a picture of your team and then have some person with nice handwriting right on the back, thank you from Pali Robotics, or thank you from Team Blank, and then just send it over. And it doesn't take that much resources, and it looks super sweet. Yeah. And lastly, sponsor dinner. I know teams do this a lot. I think Holy Cows has a famous one. where they invite all their sponsors to somewhere, their lab, and they all kind of sit together, eat dinner. It's superhuman. All the other sponsors can meet each other, and it's sweet, I guess. I don't know. I've never had one, but just telling you guys. About sponsor packages, you can have them in the end of the season or the middle of the season, like right before kickoff or at the end of build season, depending on how you want to do it. And it's just a recap. You include team pictures, tangible items. So this presentation mentions space cookies a lot. That's because this presentation I got from a space cookie who I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation was really helpful for me. So yeah, I just used their examples a lot. Mail versus in person. You can have a sponsored dinner or you can meet them in real life. This is just kind of overview. Social media. Facebook is becoming less popular, so I've heard. I don't know, I'm a junior. I'm getting old in terms of social media. Facebook has longer posts and pictures, so use there's like a large range of ages. There are people in high school, middle school, not really anymore, and like old people. Sorry. So like you're appealing to a really, really big base of people from all different age groups. You don't want to seem immature or like crazy. Twitter is a younger age range than Facebook, but it's still really large. So again, you want to keep it like pretty professional. The difference between Facebook and Twitter is longer posts and images. Facebook, you can link images. You could like have those cute letters, like open letter to our sponsors or stuff like that. You can include links. So Facebook is a lot more open in terms of space. Twitter is good for short posts, links, and promotions. It's also a good way after a match. Like we just had a match with @254 or @someone, and you just link them and you say, great game or something. And that's a really good way to just promote cooperation and also have a really active Twitter. And lastly, Instagram. Instagram is the youngest of all the social medias here. And they have the youngest age group, so you probably won't be having sponsors there. Like I know sponsors sometimes are on Facebook or something. They'll see your posts, which is why you want to maintain professionality. Not to say that your Instagrams aren't professional, but it'll probably be only for other first team kids. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Have artsy pictures, a theme, whatnot. So I just stole Liz's Facebook. This is kind of weird looking, but that's her Facebook posts, not mine. But like you see, it's like casual filters, laughing with friends. You don't really want that when you're on a first team, right? You want like nice, beautiful, probably not staged photos that have people working and you can explain it and have links. Always use hashtags, which sounds really lame, but hashtags are actually really, really helpful. You know, hashtag OMG Robots is hashtag first. Is OMG Robots official? I actually don't know, but everyone uses it. You should use it. It's great. When it comes to marketing on social media, you never know who you can reach because now it's the information age. Everyone can access your social media. If you're a team, you're probably public. You always want to proofread. Don't be the team with spelling errors because it's embarrassing and you don't want that. Usually you want someone else to proofread it for you because sometimes people can't see their own errors. Please have someone else proofread. Like Facebook, you can edit your posts now. I don't know, some you can't, so just please proofread. Keep everyone updated when it comes to competition. Like, be as extra as possible when it comes to social media to a limited extent. Like Facebook, you can probably only post once, max twice a day, right? At like the optimal times, maybe once at like 11 in the morning, once at 5. When it comes to Twitter, you can use it like basically any time. I don't have an Instagram, so I wouldn't know, but Instagram is there for whenever you will have pretty pictures. So you want to keep everyone as updated as possible. Don't be too extra because you don't want to be the team that spams things, but you want to be the team that people know about it and you're like promoted on social media. I don't know, man. People call me old because I don't have Instagram. Okay, I have an activity. So essentially, I just picked SVR because that's our regional, but I go to it. So I have two scenarios. One where you use Facebook, one where you use Twitter, and just construct me a Facebook post and a tweet. Actually, I'm just gonna, this side of the room, you're gonna use Facebook. That side of the room, you're gonna use Twitter. And you guys break into groups again and construct me like a really great Facebook post. If you wanna use emojis or something, just write insert smiley face emoji or something, okay? And then if you have pictures, insert it there. Okay, break, I will give you until 11:50 because this should be pretty short. Yes, the purple people. What's your name?
So, my name is Adrian.
Hey, Adrian.
So, we just finished up
That was pretty good. I like the inspirational ending. It was not cheesy. You're like walking the borderline, which is good. So I like that. I think it was written really well. Pictures are always good because, you know, draws people in. I would say bring something like that. Good hashtags. Yeah. Twitter. No? Do you have to pick people? You look nervous in the blue. Do you want to go? Yes.
I'm not, I used to use Twitter, so I came up with something.
Oh, okay, go.
So I think, you know, pick your team number, whatever it is, or your team name. We just use their team because we worked out. So come check out Bare Metal 2046 at wherever. So I don't know, take at Bay Area Science Festival, January 13th, 1 to 5 at AT&T Park. And then hashtag OMG Robots, hashtag Bay Area Science Festival.
Yeah. The scenario 2 is just to recapitalize on the fact that people should use links. If you have areas, be like, oh, here are the directions, or here's a link to the event, just so people know. Like, do as much as you can to make sure that people can get there as easy as possible, because you're trying to like bring them in, you know. So do whatever you can to make it easy for them. Yeah. Otherwise, good tweet. Yeah.
I think actually thinking about that, I would say, come check out Bare Metal 2046 at AT&T Park, January 13th, 1 to 5, and then hashtag Bay Area Science Festival, hashtag
Yeah.
because then people know where you're going.
Exactly. So moving on from sponsors, anyone have any questions for sponsors? Because I'm just going to move on to grants. Okay, cool. Raise your hand if you were at the grant workshop like an hour ago. Yay, okay. I wanted to go, but I missed it because I was polishing this. So this is kind of like a basic overview of what grants should be. For people who went to the workshop, it's probably review, but grants are basically non-repayable funds dispersed by one party that you have to apply to. So it's different from sponsorships because they are like selecting who they want to give money to through a like filtered process. So you want to look in terms of what grants you're applying to for FIRST grants, educational grants, STEM grants, or youth programs. So there are different ways you can find access to grants. FIRST Stims actually links a lot of grants on there. You can always find it on firstinspires.com. They have the NASA grant open in September. So for Ariana, is that your name? Ariana, when you mentioned that you were emailing NASA, actually they have a grant system for rookies and for older teams. So it's actually really good. It's at the beginning of the school year. So when you write grants, you really need to remember to have like a lead group in charge of grant writing. Same thing as like a sponsorship packet or newsletter. You want to make sure that there's a core group of people working on it, or else it's really going to overwhelm you. You want to keep record of everything you do and do your research. Make sure that you're applying to something you can make it to. Like, public grants are really hard to get because public grants have a lot of competition. You're fighting against the public. So there are people who are doing really cool things, you're doing really cool things, but you're in competition. For FIRST grants, it's less competitive because, you know, it's for more people. A few grants that you could check out on, Monsanto always has a grant, NASA always has a grant, BAE Systems always has a grant. I'm blanking out, but those are like some big three that a lot of, huh?
Those are the big ones.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
Has a grant,
Oh yeah, Boeing has a grant.
where you are.
Yeah, and if you have an Apple connection, Apple also has a grant. So like those are like the really big grants that you can apply to, and they're also one of like the biggest FIRST sponsors if you look at it year to year, so that's something you want to keep in track of. Actually make time to write. This is something that a lot of people lose track of. If you have a deadline, I start in August, I'm like, oh, my deadline's in September, I have so much time. You actually don't have a lot of time when you realize you have to answer like 10 questions in depth about your team with word limits, and you want to polish it as much as possible. So, you know, you want a team working on it, and you want to go through revision processes and edits. So that's something you really want to take care of. So make sure it actually gets done by assigning people, and make sure it's not too many people. If you have like your whole team, depending on how big your team is, working on a grant, people are just going to overwrite one another. The edits are going to be messy. You want to make sure it's like a good size. And make sure everything is in the same area. Like, don't be that team that has like half their things on Google Drive and half their things on Word. Like, it's just too messy. Consolidate. And project management. Project management is just making sure your things are on time. Have deadlines that are before the deadline. Be like, hey, if my thing is due September 30th, by September 1st, I want a rough draft. Then I'll bring people who've never seen what we wrote before, so fresh eyes, to read over it for a week, and then after that, we'll go back and fix all their edits. Something like that, and make sure someone's in charge of project managing it, or things are really going to go overboard. Keep everything on record for grants. Grants generally ask basic questions like, oh, tell me about your team history, tell me about your mission statement, what do you do to impact your community, how big are you, all that stuff. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes they ask you to submit a team budget from the past year, have it all. Yes?
So our team is almost completely funded by grants, and I'm the coach, so I write the grants. I suggest having an adult do it. It's not like where, companies, you write a letter to them and they want to hear students' impact on their life. They don't care. You're talking to their business people, basically. You want it to be the absolute best you can do, like adult to adult, and you need all those numbers to be 100% accurate. Like not like, I think this, I think that. Like it's normally a good coach / business mentor thing to do, to write the grants, because and it also, there's a lot of companies that only do grants, like BAE, you can't say write
Yeah.
a letter to BAE. If you do, they say go to our grant portal. So you need to know which companies that do that. Boeing does that, BAE does that. Sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah, I know some teams do it by like having adults do it, as you mentioned. Other teams do it. I know some other successful grant teams have like kids write it at first, and then the mentors go in and like make critiques, and then the kids continue fixing it. So depending on how you want to do it, just make sure you have a reliable group of people doing it. It could be one person, but I would feel really bad for that one person. So try to have a group of people working on it. Again, do your research. When you try to find grants, you can look into other teams' websites. Once again, look through like firstinspires.com, go through connections, local businesses, and you want to figure out your end goal for your grant. What are you going to get from it? Are you going to get like financial help for materials, for food, and you want to think about your budget. So when you write it, you have a clear goal, and all your writing is concise to one point. So for the actual writing, you want to figure out how long it will take and find an appropriate workspace. Some people write grants in the lab. It doesn't work always for people, like if you have machining in the background, depending on what your lab situation is like. If you have machining in the background, or people cutting things or yelling, that might not be the best place. Make sure you're writing in a good environment. This is just like point of view, because I know that we tried to write in the lab and then it gets super distracting, so. Think about it. Have mentors double and triple and quadruple check your submission before submitting. This makes sure that you don't have lots of errors in your statistics or your writing. There are experts on grants, by the way, just out there. There are people's jobs who are just, hey, we're gonna write grants. And if you find those people, they're really helpful and they're really nice. Yeah?
And also, most times grants companies are looking for something. So that's where an adult is nice, because lots of times I don't think kids pick up on the subtle, like, our company wants this, this, this. You do a little bit of research, you write a grant exactly to what the audience wants to hear, and then they're like, sounds good, we'll give you money. Because they're really just looking for all the keywords to hook in. And so it's good. That's, again, a double, triple, quadruple check that you're actually getting what the company is looking for, and it will give you the things that you want.
Exactly. So try to submit before the deadline. I know I submitted a grant like, 30 seconds before it was due. Like I got a receipt and it was like, you submitted at 11:59 with 30 seconds. So that was scary because it was due at 12. Don't do that. That was horrible. Like try to make sure that you're submitting it before the deadline, because technology crashes. Maybe you forgot. You don't want to like leave money on human/technological error. You're talking about like thousands of dollars that you could be getting for your team, for your robot. So be responsible. In terms of writing styles for grants, this kind of depends. Sometimes you want to be more emotional and persuasive, like a story. Again, do your research. Try to make sure like what they want. Adjectives are your friends. And if there is honestly such thing as too much writing, I don't know why that's on my slide. Try to be as concise as possible while describing your mission and your goal. And convince everyone you're really cool and you connect with their mission and goal. These are some sample questions. I wouldn't make you do it, but we kind of need to move on. So, yes. Fundraising on your own. This is just a really quick segment. I know some teams do raise a lot of money doing their own things that aren't sponsorships and aren't grants. So this is just a quick overview for it. There's school fairs, local community, donations, FRC communities, like benefiting at tournaments, and donations. And this sounds like pretty small and grassroots, but if it all combines, there are teams who are really, really successful just by raising money in this way. Like I know a team that raised $5,000 through a Zumba-thon, which is like a marathon, but you just Zumba. Yeah, like you can raise a lot of money depending on how you do it. It was a school-based team. They had another like pie your teacher stand where you paid $5 to pie a teacher. They earned a lot of money. I don't know. You can always do it. So I would have you brainstorm, but I have a Trello. So you just click. And when I share this presentation with all of you, you'll be able to access it. But essentially, when it loads, it's a huge, or not huge, but it's a database full of information that you could have on different ways you could do business on a first team. And you could just like click on it, and it'll just have examples. And it'll have an expected yield, successful examples, things that you could research, like see crowdfunding, GoFundMe. For this example, if you want to look into yard sales, you have successful examples and expected profit. So you can just do a lot of research this way for yourself. It's really helpful. If you get this presentation, I would suggest you click on it just because it's really nice. It even has more information on corporate sponsorships, just everything. No. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little small thing that I think is pretty important when it comes to teams, especially if you are like newer to the whole grant sponsorship thing, you're having a little bit of trouble. This is a really easy way for you to start getting into raising money for yourself. And it's really fun too if you think of creative solutions. So budgeting. I am not my team's treasurer, so I can't speak too much, but on like basic information, collect data from previous years. If your team has a problem with pizza consumption, like you guys just eat copious amounts of pizza. I don't know why, but that's a common problem in FRC apparently. Like, don't assume that you're gonna eat less pizza this year. Like, a problem people have while budgeting is being like, oh, we spent $3,000 on pizza, it's okay, we won't do it this year, we're just gonna put $200 in allocation. Like, you're not gonna actually be able to cut down that much, and people just run over budget by idealizing their habits and what happens. So just keep it realistic, do your research on what happened before, and like work on that. Have a separate treasurer and make sure they're good at math or spreadsheets and stuff like that. This way, it makes sure that like it's out of people's hairs. Again, you want to make sure someone's like specified to work on something so you don't overwhelm everyone. Manage your bank accounts well and have like solid adult supervision. Like this is money we're talking here. You don't want to mess it up. You want to have adults and mentors really help you with this. Have a profit goal each year and always have a margin for error. Again, look at previous years. If you say, hey, we're gonna make $50,000 through sponsorships this year, and you only made like $10,000 last year. It's not gonna happen unless you have a really good plan. And even so, I don't know, it happens for people, but you wanna make sure you're being realistic. Look at your past, think about it, and compensate for it. Have control over your budget. It's very important to make sure you have wiggle room. Make sure you finalize that at the end of each year so you can look at it, review. Yeah, work with others when you need to make orders. Don't have like things being confused or else your budget ends up in a gray area. So when you create a budget, have a place for it. Don't be the team that has like 3 separate budgets and they're all over the place because, I don't know, people have told me about it and it's kind of sad because people's money gets misplaced. Have a person in charge of it and know your bank accounts and the accounts for transaction fees because that kind of adds up if you think about it. So make sure you budget that in too. So take into account competition, registration, food, transport, hotels, build season snacks, which adds up a lot. Printing gear, team gear, transaction fees, electronics, and like miscellaneous costs. Because if you look at your budget, every year somehow, at least for us, we always seem to run over, like somehow than we projected. And like it's probably because you idealize yourself or you make a robot more complex than you should, but every year it goes over, so you make sure you have wiggle room and take into account scholarships and savings. Like, you don't want to enter the beginning of a school year with like 0 money at all, because that's a problem, right? You want to make sure that you have a little bit left over so you can like start from somewhere, and if like scholarships, in case someone can afford to go to competition, you can really help them. So just keep that in mind for people. When it comes to competitions, plan and plan and plan. There are unexpected situations always. It's better to have money in your pocket than not, so in terms of budgeting. Yeah, talked about that. Lastly, 501c3 before we move on to awards. So a 501c3 is if you want to become a government nonprofit. Some teams are 501c3, some teams are not. I know some teams recently have begun to transition. So there are budget effects from changing this, so you really want to think about it. It becomes tax exempt. It allows you to get grants, like public grants, sponsors, and you're supposed to start with no money from the beginning. This is a sketchy gray area. Some people still do, and it doesn't really matter. So there are pros, haha, PR for public relations. So the pros are you're tax exempt. You have like thing to like a kickboard off of for grants and sponsors. You have less individual liability, and it looks good when you're writing. Cons, you have to submit your budget to the government. There's paperwork. You need a boosters team, which is like a group of adults that manages money. Hopefully you already had a boosters team, because as I said, you don't want your budget being in the hands of, I mean, okay, I know teens are responsible, I'm a teen, but like, you don't want that. Yeah, I'm like losing my voice. Okay, again, I would do this, but we don't have time, I'm sorry. I will just share this presentation with all of you. Awards, we are kind of on time. So there are three main like application awards that you can do. For first, there's entrepreneurship, Woody Flowers, and chairman's. So entrepreneurship is my baby, so we'll talk about it first. Entrepreneurship award kind of focuses on finances, organization, business. So according to the first website, entrepreneurship celebrates the entrepreneurial spirit by recognizing a team that has developed a framework for a comprehensive business plan to scope, manage, and obtain team objectives. So a lot of the business plan and entrepreneurship board focuses a lot on how you earn your money and how you manage to like turn that into a cohesive argument or persuasive argument from the stuff that I mentioned before. So you want to make a business plan each year, and you want it to be pretty. So this business plan is actually not very pretty. This is from 2 years ago. 2 years ago, our business plan was not super pretty, and also we had a budget of $20,000 a year, roughly. This year, our budget is $58,000, and our business plan is prettier. So go us. So how you want to make your business plan is first requires you to have certain things in your business plan. And you want to make sure you have that. It involves an executive summary, team history, organization, management, operations, sponsorship levels, special operations, risk analysis, what first is to you, long-term growth, how you want to see your team evolve, and your budget, which I mentioned, and a contact us page is always nice. So your business plan talks about who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Like it should be an executive summary of your whole team. You want formatting, you want graphs, tables, charts, everything. Everything. You want to make sure that it's the best representation it can be of your team. So this year we had it slightly differently. We designed it all on InDesign. Surprisingly, only 8 people on our team worked on it for a week, so I just high-key overworked them. We have a team of 85, by the way, so that's how much it just ran business team to the ground. But it came out very nicely. How we do it is we have a business plan, and we also have a diversity and sustainability plan. And so I think it's been interesting. In my opinion, it's helped awards a lot. So how we do it is business plan talks about like the business aspects of our team. We talk about executive summary, history, organization, stuff like that, our budget. Sustainability talks more about like how do we sustain our team, what are the issues we faced, and how does it like affect us. This of course means our team was founded in like 1996, so we're very old, and that's why we have that. Depending on who you are, you might not want that. And diversity plan, if you've ever been to like a pit with judges, sometimes they ask, hey, how are your girls in STEM? Hey, you know, how do you recruit new members? How many new members do you have? And that's always good to have like the diversity of your team just there. Yeah. So, as I talked about, these are the parts to a business plan. You can find it here, and you can also find it on the first website. It's pretty common. So, as I mentioned, the executive summary is who your team is. Like, who is Team Blank? Who's Team Pally Robotics? Who's Team 254? Who are you? And your team history, when you were set up, why you were set up. Like, what was the starting mission for your team? And you want to talk about how you're organized. Like, you want to talk about your team structure, your leadership, and how your mentors interact with the team. Because first is a lot, puts a big focus on like mentor-student relations. You don't want to leave that out. Like, mentors really do help you run your team in a way, right? Like, either by keeping your lab open, giving you advice, and you want to give them recognition and also explain how they work with you. Relationships is more of like you and your ties to external organizations. Some teams are community teams, meaning they're not affiliated with the school. Other teams are more tied with the school, so you could talk about that, talk about your sponsor relations, how you fostered these relations, how they were developed. And you want to talk about deployment of resources, which is how money and time and people are spent on the team, right? Because, I don't know, perhaps my team does a lot of outreach. We spend 100 man-hours per month on outreach. Like, you want to say that because you're deploying people who are a huge resource for your team into something, so you want to explain why, how, when you do these things. Lastly, there's risk analysis, which is a little bit more confusing. It's your SWOT analysis, and then you have your long-term, we'll talk about SWOT in a moment. Lastly, you have your long-term growth, which is what your team plans to do in the future. So like, most people, when they create a team, they don't expect their team to die anytime soon, right? You're expecting your team to keep running. So what do you plan to do in the future? Do you plan to do more outreach? Do you plan to raise more money? And how? You want to give people like a good idea of where your team is going to be in the future, the light at the end of the glorious tunnel. And lastly, you want to have a budget and financial statement, pretty obvious. You include a picture of your budget, and you explain it in paragraph form. So there's actually a word limit when you applied for the entrepreneurship board on the First Stems website. When you do it yourself, if you noticed, ours is like pretty informatted. We kind of broke the word limit after that. So when you apply for the award, you have to put it in a word limit and the judges will read through it. When you're actually at competition, entrepreneurship works this way. The judges read your submission, you're allowed to attach 4 images? I want to say 4 images, to your submission, and the judges read it, and they go around in the pits and start asking you questions, and a lot of the questions are about business things, and you can show them pretty things like this, because it's formatted, but you're not actually allowed to submit it to the award. You can submit it as an image, but to see the whole thing, they have to be there in person. So, it depends on how you want to format it. Risk analysis is pretty important. Risk analysis is SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is a thing that you don't want to get wrong because it seems kind of weird. So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So strengths are what you're good at, what your team is doing well right now. Like, hey, we are increasing in size and everyone's really happy. I don't know. A weakness is what you need to work on. Like, oh, perhaps our mentors are not involved as they could be. Perhaps we have less money than we had hoped, whatever it is. An opportunity is what you have that is given to you. Like, oh, a really great opportunity we have is we have the opportunity to have a school district that supports us, some kind of opportunity. And threats and weaknesses are the things that get mixed up. A threat is something that's going well right now, but could go wrong in the future, like you foresee it. Like, oh, our lab space is great right now, but it's kind of old, and if it becomes a safety hazard, where are we gonna go? And then after your SWOT analysis, you want to explain that your threats are not real threats and that you have solutions to them, which is what makes you look good, right? You don't want to just say, hey, we might have our lab closed down. That's it. You want to give examples, solutions, and that's how you're going to appeal to judges, because it shows that you're long-term thinking, So throughout your business plan, you kind of want to look at all these things. I'm not going to read them because my voice is killing me, but you want to look at all these things, how you want to explain them, and they're all really important to who your identity is as a team. So you want to mention all these things. If you can't, mention it in person. Okay, so try SWOT analysis. I'm not going to make you read it out loud, but maybe I should. I don't know. But think about your own team for a second. Just come together with your team members or just self-reflect and think about a SWOT analysis chart that you would want to make. Because mostly how SWOT analysis is displayed is like a little T chart. Like a square with 4 quadrants. Yeah, and then each quadrant represents S, W, O, or T. So you want to think about what you would put in there, and if you have threats, how you would be able to address it. So I will give you until 12:20. So if everyone could just think about a SWOT analysis, I'll just be going around and talking to people during that time. Yeah. Okay, go. So long-term growth is also something that we really want to capitalize on. First, if you notice, it's a lot about rapid expansion, or it has been initially, because first was trying to grow itself, and you can't blame them, but it was a lot about rapid expansion. Like, oh my God, what was it? I think a few years ago there was a whole move to bring FIRST to China. It's a lot about how many FIRST teams did you create? How many FTC teams did you create? There are teams with huge stats. In the past 2 years, we created 20 FLL teams, stuff like that. And so long-term growth is less about that and more about how to sustain the direction that your team has been in. Say, you want to have ambition and accountability. You don't want to say, hey, we're going to create 200 FTC teams in a year, it's going to be great, and not actually have that happen. Because no one's going to be there to be like, oh, you didn't create those 200. But it hurts your team to be projecting something that you're not actually going to make. So in terms of team image, you want to keep up. You want to be a team that has a lot of integrity. So while having ambition, you don't want to be too extra. And so long-term growth has a bit of ties with your SWOT analysis. So as mentioned before, your SWOT analysis has a lot of things that are mentioned with sponsorship partnerships, finance, diversity. And let's say your SWOT analysis mentions that you don't have a lot of girls on your team. You're 1% female, okay? Then when you look into the future, you could be like, oh, looking into the future, we plan to reach out to different groups and make sure that we become a more open and diverse place. Like, you want to look at things that you mentioned in your SWOT analysis, look at how you want to grow, and then talk about how you want to grow yourself. And then having a good long-term growth strategy is always good when you look back. Like, let's say your goal was to make 2 FTC teams in a year, and then a year from now you actually made 2, or you made 3. Then when you talk to judges, you can be like, oh my god, we had said we were going to make 2, but we made 3. And it looks really good, because not only are you being like really good about your goals, you're exceeding them, and it shows something about who your team is and what kind of characters you embody. So, in terms of all of you guys, have all of you guys submitted to the entrepreneurship board before, or created a business plan? Hands up. Oh, okay. Wait.
That's why we're here.
Wait, can you like put your hands really high? Okay. For those of you who have and for those of you who haven't, since I only went over the 2 sections I thought were really like confusing, do you guys want any help in terms of like any of these sections? No, like questions, concerns? Jennifer, what is the mission statement? Yes. You can go. Do you want to go?
I just want to, I just presented you voice.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Bruce Wall. I'm the head coach of Teammate, and I'm noticing Jennifer's voice is going a little bit, so I'm looking for opportunities to hop in and let her take a little bit of a break. It's normally she does this with 2 people. And that question is something that I have some strong feelings about. So there was a point in time, Teammate has existed for 23, 24 years. I joined Teammate 6 years ago. Teammate, at that point in time, had won 1 award, ever. And it was an award that came, the judges went to the pits, I'm told, this is the story I'm told. They went to the pits, saw something that we had done great, and then kind of forced the award upon us. Rockwell Innovation Control or something. So we did not apply for any awards. Like, and the whole team culture was very sort of like anti-award. And so it took some convincing, and it took some patience. But at a certain point in time, you spot students like Jennifer, and you say, okay, you want to change the culture of this team. Here's how you can do it. Because when you win an entrepreneurship award, when we had a business captain who was Jennifer's predecessor, right? Right. So two business captains alone, before. All alone, that student created our entrepreneurship award proposal and won. Okay. And so suddenly the teams, for the first time in 20 years, the team got to go down and pick up an award. All right. And we went down there, and it's like that just changed the psychology of the team. So to some extent, you make the award important by winning it. You win that thing, and oh my gosh, now like the team, like, we got to do this again. Lauren did that all by herself. We got to support her, and they did. Lauren's successors kind of worked to expand the business team and expand the effort in awards, and now they're kind of almost addicted to the idea of winning awards. I gotta say, but calm down, guys. But they do a fantastic job because they had that experience. I guess the first thing that I did to help with this, I would say though, is I required the team to stay and watch the whole award ceremony. Even if you're not going to win any awards, we stay and watch that whole thing. You don't bail out early, and that was sort of one of the first rules that I ever imposed. So, with that, I'm going to give you 20 more seconds while she finishes chewing her snack. I don't know if I have anything more to say. Plug. So tomorrow, isn't Jennifer fantastic? Yeah. So if you want to know how to create students like Jennifer, come to the Leading Leaders presentation that I'll be giving tomorrow at 1:30 in this very same place. And the short answer is, let them do what they want to do, and they do great things. Anyway, back to Jennifer.
Okay. Sorry, I'm like drinking copious amounts of water and eating because I took a red-eye flight here. So I haven't ate since 7 o'clock last night in my time. So I don't know what that was. Yeah. What was I going to say? In terms of entrepreneurship awards and team culture, I think that what Mr. Kuzma said about winning awards and like having that benefit you, it does kind of, because there's like a, you know, a thrill to receiving shiny medals and stuff. But like honestly, I think it's an important award because in terms of learning experiences, it does help you a lot. Like Chairman's is a writing award, right? Like sure, everyone knows like, oh, that's an important award because if you win it, you get to go to Champs. But the way you apply to it, you have to write things, and you're not gonna learn things fast enough by only applying to the Chairman's Award, because that's one award. You write one application every single year. That's gonna take you a really long time to finesse that application, right? But if you have like multiple awards you're applying to, you can always learn what works well, what doesn't work well, and that's gonna help you, like in the long run. Yeah. Any more questions on general entrepreneurship board things? Yes.
Can I put in a plug for awards too and writing? So I went to a conference a while back for science teachers, and we were doing research and stuff, but it was like the head of CT for California basically said, you know, we need all of our students to learn how to write, because the reality is if you can't write and can't communicate all the cool stuff you're doing, nobody cares. And it's true. If you can't communicate what it is you're doing that's awesome, nobody knows about it, nobody cares, you know, there's no benefit that comes from it. You learn how to do that, all of a sudden the world opens up. So that's
Yeah. So moving on from the like writing portion of entrepreneurship, there's a talking portion, which I find really exhilarating for some reason. It's like an adrenaline high, but I know people are like really afraid of it. So when it comes to talking to judges, they don't really have a time when they come to you, which is very stressful. But they'll approach you casually, or your team, and they'll start asking questions about your robot. The robot, this is to trick you, is a joke. They don't actually try to trick you, but they tend to ask more things about like your outreach, your business finance, your team history, growth. So you want to plan accordingly to the questions that they'll ask. How I really like to do it is I gather my business kiddos. I'm business team captain, so I have a sub-team. I gather the people who like to talk to judges or will talk to judges, and I gather them and I start asking questions based off the questions that I already know like the judges used to ask. Something I did this year that I think was nice was when the judges come to ask you questions, they'll start asking like questions that you know it's entrepreneurship. They'll be like, what's your budget? Or like, you know, how much do you spend on build season materials? And by that time you'll know, so after they leave, immediately write everything down. Because something you realize, like if you ever have done like an interview or played a sport or something, like after the scary moment passes, you kind of forget a lot of what you were doing, right? Like the adrenaline just kind of wipes your mind. So what you do is right afterward, right after you're done talking to judges, take out a laptop or something and write down the questions they ask so you can practice later on. Like you might not win, but that's a really good way for you to practice talking to people and knowing what questions they ask. To plan for this, other than asking questions, getting people acquainted with your materials, that's really important. If you create a business plan, the judges are gonna ask to see your business plan materials, and you're gonna have a beautifully formatted thing. If you don't know where things are, that looks bad. You'll be like, hey, this is our SWOT analysis, and you have to flip. Don't do that, like memorize the places, you know? For public speaking, be happy and smile and, you know, quirky, cute. You're still like a kid, the judges are adults. You look adorable, you know, just try to like capitalize on that. Like actually though, you're doing really cool things, and like they know you're doing really cool things. You just want to make them know the extent of which you are amazing. So just don't really be that afraid of them. No, I need to continue talking. Don't really be that afraid of them, because they're there. They aren't there to judge you. I mean, they are, but they're there to like appreciate you for what you've been doing, right? So for the questions they ask, be prepared. If you don't know something, don't lie. It comes back to bite you. Like, don't be that team. If you don't know, you don't know. What we like doing is having, like, pit rotations. So I know everyone probably has pit rotations for hardware people, right? Like, if your robot breaks, everyone kind of goes around. What I like doing is, in terms of business team, I would have, like, a member that knows a lot more about, like, fundraising, grants, and our business plan, and I would have them just kind of sit in the corner of the pit or far away, like, close enough where it's eye shot. And when judges come, they can come over and they can talk, and then other business people can flock in through messaging or whatever. And then this way, if I don't know the answer to a question, they're like, hey, how many girls are there on the team? And I don't know, I can look at another member and they can pick up the question with you. So something that you want to make sure of is you have like good group dynamic. It doesn't look good when you're talking over other people, right? Like you don't want to be that team where like you're fighting for attention. You're there to like display information and to be as smooth as possible in a way. So Woody Flowers Award. So the Woody Flowers Award is presented to an outstanding mentor in the robotics competition who best leads, inspires, teaches, and empowers their team using excellent communication skills. So from the first website. For you guys, the award doesn't really directly affect you guys, but it's for your mentors and you love them. So you write it, and it's also good writing practice. And also you're the ones writing it. So, I mean, if you're applying, someone will have to write it. And so the main idea of the award is what makes like so great. You know, you have 10,000 characters, and you want to use emotions, quotes, anecdotes, facts. Like, who is that person, and what have they done to impact first and impact your team? You're writing it. You can use your personal voice if you want to. Like, you want to make it so that first knows that you love them and they've done amazing things, so that, you know, they win and they get something shiny. Something really important for the award, like in terms of award writing, there are always rules, there are always guidelines. When you look at the entrepreneurship award on the first website, there are guidelines. They're like, hey, you have to talk about this. The entrepreneurship board is about business. You wouldn't go in the entrepreneurship board and be like, our robot, you know, great intake, you know, our Magnum wheels. You don't talk about that. For Woody Flowers, it's the same thing. You want to like keep yourself focused on the main idea. And the main idea of this award, there's two things. One, the accomplishments and communication by the mentor, what the mentor did, and two, it's about the student's ability to communicate clearly and concisely how good the mentor is through their nomination. So half of it is on the mentor and what they did, but the other half is on you, on the writer, to show it. And that's what the award judges you on. So these bullet points, I pulled off the website. If you haven't seen them before and you also applied to Woody Flowers, probably a problem. You want to look at their level of student participation. How does the mentor interact with students? First is a lot about mentor-student interaction. You want to capitalize on it. You talk about your creativity of effort. You know, how creative are they to get you involved? You want clear explanations of things. They want to be enthusiastic. You, once again, just show that they're personally passionate, they've done great things, and they communicate well. The word uses communication like 3 times in that bullet-pointed list, and their rules and stuff. So like, it's really big on how you convey things, how they convey things, so just focus on that. Yeah. There are photos, optional photos that go with the Woody Flowers Award. Highly suggest you send in photos. It humanizes them. You know, like you're an individual, they're not a bot. Show them cool things, make them seem as well-rounded as possible, and be a good pair with your essay. Like, perhaps you don't have, like you have a limited photo base, you only have a few photos of your mentor, but if your Woody Flowers Award is solely about how kind and loving and caring they are to you, don't show pictures of like mugshots of them or like, you know, them working solely. Like you wanna show something where they seem to match and complement your essay. If your essay is about how amazing they work well with people, you maybe wanna show them interacting with a student, you know, laughing, smiling, hugging, I don't know. Like you want to have them seem personable and real. Yeah. Okay, any questions about Woody Flowers? We're gonna move on. Okay, great. Woody Flowers is really good for practicing writing, I think. Like Woody Flowers Entrepreneurship Chairman, they like really help you with your writing skills over time. If you do it year after year after year, this is my 3rd year doing all 3, but it seems like it would be repetitive, but it actually isn't, because you learn a lot every time you write it. You go to different workshops, you learn cool tricks, and then you apply them, and then you feel cool. So it's really nice. And then lastly, Chairman's, the Mega Award. The most prestigious award at first. It honors the team that best represents a model for other teams to emulate and best embodies the purpose and goals of the first website. Do we know the first core values? Oh. Cooperation, having fun, gracious professionalism. The crowd is awkwardly silent. Okay, well, you need to know that. So, the Chairman's Award is huge on outreach, right? Because you're trying to show that you're an example to other FIRST teams, that you're fulfilling FIRST's mission. The FIRST's mission is to spread science and technology. It's for inspiration and recognition of science and technology. So you're trying to show that you're doing outreach, you're giving the blessings of STEM to other people. So you want to plan and execute outreach, and how you do this is really important. You need to find a need in your community, right? Everything is a sort of like cost and benefit. There's a need out there, you find a need, you establish a contact, you plan it, you visit them, and you just execute your outreach. And it's beautiful, and you take pictures of it. So where do you find outreach events? There are sponsored demos, which are always really nice for entrepreneurship. They literally always ask about how you keep in track with your sponsors. There are local school events, local community events, events with other teams, and take initiative and make your own events. Like all these things show like a good version of your team. Like, hey, we're not just caring about a robot, we care about people. We care about the younger generation. These people are gonna end up joining our team someday maybe, end up working in the tech industry someday maybe, and you just wanna be there to help them along that path. So general first ideas, you want to help with like FLL, FTC, FRC, because you get brownie points because it's first and you're first. So you can do that through demos at schools, workshops, mentoring a team, or volunteering at tournaments. You want to be like firsty, like their poster children. So you want to plan ahead in terms of outreach. This shouldn't be a slide, but honestly, it's a problem because outreach sometimes is put on the back burner. Make sure you have a checklist, have alternate plans, advertise in advance. You don't want to be like setting up a booth at a park, say, and no one comes. Like, it's just sad. So you want to like advertise yourself, bring up hype in the community so when you come, it looks super nice, and you can cite it and say, this many people came. So at the outreach event, demo the robot, bring awards. Business cards and buttons are really nice. Like, people like to be given things, right? 'Cause it like makes you feel special, shiny new things. And also it's another way for people to reach you. So you want to talk to people and initiate conversations because that's kind of how the only way you can reach out to people. You have to learn to be social. So when talking to people, hand gestures are nice, word choice is nice. I sway a lot. Do as I say, not as I do. Be loud and clear and confident. Whether or not you're a rookie or a veteran, you probably know more about first than someone who goes, what is first? So you can explain something at least. Be humorous and interesting. Don't say I don't know to those people, but you probably want to just pass on to someone. Like, oh, this person can answer it better than I can, And appearance, wear the same shirt or color. Like, you probably have team shirts, wear it all. Don't like come there in like casual clothes and no one looks the same, or else you won't even know, like, why are you special, And remember that you're representing your team to the public. Don't be like goofy or something. You can be, I'm sure you're all like silly, happy, amazing people, but when you're around the public wearing your team shirts, every time you wear your team shirts, you're representing your team, right? If I went and I like committed a crime and I'm wearing my Pally Robotics shirt, like that's a reflection on me and it's a reflection on my team. So every time you're wearing your shirt, you're projecting an image to the public, and therefore you want to be the best person possible while you're in that shirt. And also smile, because it makes you cute and nice. So, again, gracious professional, you're always representing your team, okay? If you're on your team, you have a social media account, and you're like, I don't want to list bad things that you could be doing, because I feel like that'd be edging people on. But if you're doing bad things, like, don't try to associate that with your team. Like, everything you do, because you're on your team, you're a representation of it, okay? So, just be good. I have this activity, but I try to get through all the information. If anyone's dying to do it, you can hit me up afterwards. Collect your statistics and your photos. This is really important. Again, you're doing awards, you do cool things. If you don't have any proof that you did anything, it didn't happen, okay? Like, I don't care. You could be like, I did this great outreach activity. I have no photos, I have no statistics, I have no people. It basically didn't happen. You can't tell people you did it. So outreach is good for awards, but only if people know about it, okay? You want statistics on everything you can. On their team, on outreach, on money, on spending, like literally anything and everything. Okay, take good photos and videos. Surprisingly, media is super important when it comes to selling yourself as a team, right? You could say all you want about your team, like our team is huge, our team is amazing, but photos really reinforce that. Okay, see if publications outside can publicize your work. I know teams that have really good relationships with external publication companies, like, the Daily, I can't think of a city name, the Daily San Francisco or something. And whenever they have extra space, they would send in an essay that they already wrote about their team and they would publish it, maybe go to a radio segment, whatever. And by documenting things, by spreading the word, you make your team look so much better, and in awards, you look so much better. So these are examples of good photos that you want to take. We have a summer camp. Look how cute they are. Okay, that top corner is a bad photo. But you want to like show good photos of like, wow, look at this youth and look how they're drawing a car that doesn't really work, but look how pure that is. And this girl using a drill and kids eating lunch. Like, you want to project an image of what you're doing, right? Like, tips for photos, you want people in action. Don't just have people like sitting there. Don't have like artsy close-up faces. Like, I can't stress this enough. There are so many people who take photos of like artsy close-up faces, like someone like holding up a camera to their face, and that's cute and all, but like when I want to say I went to a competition, I can't just insert like 20 pictures of people's faces. I want people doing action. I want people like drilling or talking to judges. You need that when it comes to award submissions. You need people alongside people from outreach events. Like if I go and I demo at a science fair, I want photos of me and the science fair kid, so I can like be like, wow, look at this cute connection. You want up your brightness, contrast, exposure, saturation. It helps create a happy mood. Play with color scheme. Like, you don't have to do anything super professional, But you know how some photos on your like cameras end up grainy and dark and yellowy? Like that doesn't create something that you want to look at. Like create something vibrant and happy. And make sure you know what your photo says. Like don't have your photo look with like kind of glum people, because that says people are sad, you know? Have a message for your photo, and don't have too many photos of the same people, because it looks like you only have that one person. Yeah? What?
So I was wondering, how do I make my team think that outreach and media is on the same level as the same channels?
I think honestly, because we are part of an organization that puts such a large focus on science and technology, that's really hard for all teams to do. Probably. I don't know how many of you guys are actually on like the business segment of your teams. I know I am. And I know it's something like that's really hard to do because, you know, it does feel like it's less important. In terms of culture change, something is that like, if you're really enthusiastic about it, okay, and you find other people really enthusiastic about it, you can just have a small group of people start it at first. And the more things gain traction, the more like people realize that it's cool, the more people will join. There's no real solid solution to like just snap and everything will be better. But you know, with like a lot of effort and you put yourself into it, you work with mentors, you work with other students, and you create a small thing, everything will grow to the end if it works well, and you know, hopefully it'll turn out well. Yeah. So writing style for chairmans. How many of you guys have applied to chairmans? Okay, more of you guys have applied to entrepreneurship. I like entrepreneurship. So when you apply to chairmans, you have 3 parts. You have a 4 parts. You have a short answer part, an essay part, a video part, and a presentation part. So for short answer, you have 500 characters. To answer each question, it's concise, to the point. 500 characters is literally nothing, okay? Like transition words are horrible. I think at one point we considered deleting the space after periods and commas to like save characters. Like, it's really tight. You want to fit as much information as possible. Make sure the questions, there are 12, if I remember correctly, don't overlap. Because they're going to be looking at that. The essay is the place where you elaborate and you expand and you have a theme. So, did I mention themes? No, I don't. Okay. So, some things that teams do is have a theme each year, you know? Like, oh, maybe our team theme this year was STEAM. That was our theme for STEAMworks. It was like, you can't spell STEAM without team, and then the T represented something, and the E represented something. Like, T is for transforming, E is for empowering, stuff like that, you know? Sometimes people's themes are like water, or like, I don't know, step it up, or something, like some cutesy theme that you can talk about, and then that would make your whole presentation, your whole chairman's thing, so much more cohesive, because you have a narrative, right? Like, it's asking for so much information. You have a short answer, an essay, a video script, a presentation. You can't just constantly be filling them with facts, right? You need like a lens to put yourself in. Like, who are you? I am this theme. Well, not really, but the theme helps you narrow things down and makes things so much more cohesive and cutesy, and it's nice. So the essay is where you have this theme. Perhaps your theme is, I'm going to use STEAM, okay? Our theme was team, and so the T stood for something. So the T itself was a paragraph, was transforming, and talk about how we transformed the community. E was for empowering, you have a paragraph on that. So you just want to elaborate and expand on everything in short answer and mention things that weren't mentioned before. The essay is the place where you can be more avant-garde. Like, you can go bring up personal voices if you want. You can bring up struggles. You can bring up like a lot of other things, okay? But short answer is just straight facts. In terms of video script, it's 1 to 3 minutes, and it's like emotional, interviews, anecdotes. Don't make it static. Like, the problem with videos is, you know what Ken burns are?
Yes,
Yes.
I hate them.
Yeah, I do too. But like, there's only so much you can do with solely Ken burns. Like, you've probably watched a video where it's like just like a loop of like the same 5 photos with like Ken burns slowly with like a voiceover. Like, that's not exciting to watch. You know, I want to watch something that like gives me the feels and emotion and stuff like that. The best video I can come up with is the Holy Cows video. It's beautiful. Oh my god. I will play it to you guys at the end if we have time. And so, when your essay, you want to be emotional at the essay, and when it comes to presentation, I have this activity. You don't really need it. It's basically just how you would write it during a grant versus in chairman's, because they ask basically the same questions. It's a pretty typical grant question and a pretty typical chairman's question. But in grants and chairman's, you have to write it pretty differently, because in short answer for chairman's, you just want to be really concise. We spread STEAM to like 5 local elementary schools. We've done 35 demos in the past 3 years. Blah, 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 blah. We do this at our demos. Like, be concise, because you won't have time to elaborate. Like in your essay, you can be like, oh, it was so empowering to see the young children, the toddlers play with their robot, stuff like that. Chairman's video, there's a debate over its relevance. If you guys went to the chairman's chat last year, they highly mentioned this is not part of the judging. However, this is still very important. If you win, it will be shown. If it's a bad video, you'll look, I don't know, you'll look weird. I saw a chairman's win video of a person in a dinosaur mascot flipping pancakes that were first shaped. I don't know, man. It didn't super appeal to me. You want to be like something that's really exciting and invigorates people. And it could be on your team's YouTube as another way to promote yourself. The chairman's video is surrounded by a lot of hype and stigma almost. Like people are like, oh, I bet it's part of judging. They're all lying to us. Ooh, if you're in finals, they're gonna look at it as a tiebreaker. No one honestly knows. The judges say it's not part of the judging. Take to it however you want. Also, you have to have the video and you have to have the consent and release waiver form signed and given to the judges before you're allowed to present. If you forget it, you're screwed. We forgot it one year. It was really scary. This is the video I'll play at the end. For the presentation, memorize what you want to say, have it be coherent, have it flow well, and check your speed and time so you can fit it exactly into the time limit. You want an innovative presentation. You want it to catch their attention and stand apart. For example, attend chairman's chat, learns about what other people do. Exploding Bacon had this adorable thing a few years ago. I'm not sure if they still do it, but it's like they have, because they're called Exploding Bacon, they have a little table with a vinegar and baking soda experiment where they add a dash of outreach and then, whoo, magic. It's cute, it's a theme, You want something like that. The Space Queeks had the 3 T's? P's? I forgot. 3 something, Buchanan Bird Brains. There was one year where they did a mystery, where it was like, ooh, how do we solve this murder mystery? Ooh, it must be connected to outreach, and you draw little points, and it's cute. There's so many different ways for you to present your presentation. Don't be dry, you can be that team that dresses up in suits, but have a reason to be in the suits, You can wear tutus for all we care, as long as there's a reason and you look cool and you own it, Gifts and tokens are always nice. You're not bribing the judges, right? But it's always nice to give someone something cute, parting gift. Dress to impress, as I said. There are lab coats, suits, costumes, wigs, whatever, as long as you have a reason, and it's nice. While presenting, don't panic. Don't make your tributes obvious, like the gifts I mentioned. Be humble and look excited. Scout out the room. I know during a few regionals of ours, they would have mirrors behind the judges, so when you look at the judges, you can see your own reflection, and it's terrifying. If you ever try to present to a mirror, it's really disorienting to see yourself and also see them. So try to figure out where you are and plan accordingly. Don't be rude. There's the last one, would you like to sit down? While stalking Chief Delphi Chairman's questions one year, we found that a common question was, would you like to sit down? I don't know, I just found that funny, so I included it. Yeah, so contact me, ignore the first one. You can contact her too, but contact me, my email is jxu@palirobotics.com. Hopefully you all wrote your emails into this notebook. If you didn't, I'll leave it over there for you to write it in. For the remaining 7 minutes, I will try to play the Holy Cows video in the background, and you can come talk to me if you guys have any questions. Do any of you guys have any public questions? Right now, just overall? No? Great. Oh, yes. Huh? No, I have not. My freshman year was the first time we applied. Yeah. I made the poster for that year. It had a typo in it. No one noticed, but it was super yikes. I noticed, and I was like, ooh. Okay. Yeah, thank you guys.